I'm I'm just somebody who loves to spend time with people and get to know them. I think that's what it's more about. And I think sometimes people have lost themselves and have forgotten over time what they were like when they were young. And it's bringing that back, if it's the older person I'm photographing, or if it's the younger one, to just capture who they are and bring that on record. Because every person is beautiful. Everybody has a bit of sparkle. It's just lighting it in the right way. And that's what I feel like I'm doing on every session. I feel like I'm just spending time with a person, having a cup of coffee sometimes, chatting to them about life, and then finding out what they're about. We generally have the least amount of clothing that they need to have if they're going to dress them up, because those are the ones that are timeless. And so when we have somebody come into the studio who's 30 years old and says, "My mum's still got all your portraits up on the wall," it's actually great for us to hear that they haven't had to cringe and, put the shoulders away or put the perms away or whatever it was. They still look just as good, and they're very simple.
Welcome to Behind the Lens, a photographer's life. This week we've got Rita. Hi, Rita.
Hi.
So, tell everybody in the world where you're based in the world, whereabouts your studio is, what your studio name is, etc.
Okay, so we are based in the middle of England. We are in Loughborough, which is in the Midlands. I live in Loughborough. We have a studio in Loughborough, but we also have a studio in Oakham in Rutland, about 45 minutes away. Oakham has become our busiest studio because it's on a high street, or just off a high street, a very busy part of town. And Loughborough is out in the countryside with cows in the back. So it's a very different environment, and we book by appointment there. Whereas at Oakham, people pop in.
The studio's called?
The studios are called Sonara Studios.
Right. Now that's different to your surname, from what I understand.
It is.
So where did the name come from? Where's that?
So the name is actually an African word for goldsmith.
Okay.
Our families, both mine and my husband Sushil's families, through generations have been goldsmiths. So my father had a jewellery shop, a goldsmith shop in Birmingham, and Sushil's grandparents have also had, and great-grandparents have also had businesses in gold. They make gold jewellery and sell it. So they're actually designers and artists of a different kind. But yes, it was a family generational thing. And then my father-in-law and I started the business together. And when we did, we were thinking of several different names. And this one rung a bell because it meant something to us. It was very easy to say. And goldsmiths, Sonara is an African word, which, because both families have also lived in Africa, made sense to have something that was meaning to us and very different to what was out there, really. So if I go back to how we started, basically I was still studying when Shishul and I met, and there was one thing that I did want to do, was complete my degree before I moved on to do anything else. And so,
what was your degree in?
I actually was studying at the time business and finance, and then a new course was starting in conjunction with the University of Wolverhampton, because I was in Birmingham. That's where I was born and grew up. And they were offering business enterprise BA honours as a final year for those who had done the course that I was doing. So it meant that I could actually be at degree level within a year and actually have the modules that would help me in having a business. And that's what we wanted to do anyway. So after getting married, my course was in Telford. I was living in Loughborough, and Dad said, how are you going to get there every day? And so he said when we went to see the leader of the course and confirm that I've got a place, he said, let me go back and ask him. And so we were sitting in the car thinking about how I was going to get here. And he jumped out the car, went back up, met the leader and said, can I have a place on this course?
Ah,
He's well overqualified. He's had much experience in opening businesses with 400, 500, 600 people in Africa in several places. So this was the leader said, actually, you could be a tutor if you want to on our course. But he said, no, I just want to accompany my daughter and I want to do the degree with her. And so for a year, we did the degree and we qualified and graduated. There was a big celebration. Lots of family came to the graduation celebration. The university actually featured us in their newsletter, as they'd never had a father-in-law and daughter study together before. So it was a big thing in that time, and this was 1990. And then a few weeks later, we were wondering what to do in terms of moving forward. And Dad said, let's start a business. At the age of 14, he'd had a darkroom in Africa. And alongside all of his work, he'd always had photography as a hobby, something he'd loved to have spent time on. And I said, well, you've helped me with my dream. Let's do this. Let's do something that you want to do while I still find my feet. I was interested in stocks and shares and moving to London and this big picture. But in between of that, I thought, whatever I can do on the business side and help Dad, I will do that. And we started off a business together. We actually had a family portrait taken of us in that week by the local photographer, who was flukily running a prize draw that we won. And so it was quite funny. We've got a big family portrait of me, Mum, Dad, my husband and his two brothers, so Sushil and his two brothers, framed, that we bought from the session. In that week, I also found out I was going to be expecting a baby.
right.
And we had our graduation. So 3 things happened in the same week. We started a business. I was expecting a baby, and we graduated.
So where was the studio that you started? Did you straight away get a studio? What was
No, so we
there?
didn't.
How did that work?
We actually started going out to people's homes. So we would take all of our equipment, set up the studio in people's homes, and take the photographs of babies then at the time, 4 months old. And we did like a little club called the Cherubs Club, where we did 4 months, 8 months, and 12-month-old babies. And we'd follow them growing up through the year. And then we would do birthday sessions every year from that. And out of that, we then got inquiries for wedding photography, for engagements, for events, for family shoots, for grandparents, lots of different types of social photography that was then in demand. People were looking for a professional portrait. And of course, in that time, we never had mobile phones. We never had digital ways of taking photographs. So we were on film, Dad was shooting with the Hasselblad. And at the time we started, I was actually just running the business part of it. But as years went on, within a few years, I had got the bug that I want to be behind the camera as well. And so I would shoot black and white on 35mm, and he would shoot the color on 120 on the Hasselblad.
Right.
Within that first year, he'd also won a massive award, which was huge for us and got us a lot of advertising and promotional, and also trust from people that we knew what we were doing.
Right. Yeah.
And so we continued to enter for awards, and there were several other awards we won along the way. But I then got behind the camera as well, and I
So
really enjoyed black and white.
can you remember doing your own first session on your own without your dad or anything
Yes,
like that?
I do. I do. Because me and Dad worked together for 15 years. And after that, due to his health becoming a little bit more fragile, the work was getting quite heavy for him. We then decided to have two studios, two bases where people could then come to us. And then we were doing sessions by the
Well, tell
hour.
us about the thinking of that. Why two studios? Because there's a lot of people, desire to just have one studio. There's a lot of people work from home and stuff. So to have two studios, what was the thinking and rationale from that, from the both of you at the time?
Right. Well, initially, we had a client base in Loughborough. That's where we started. That's where our circles were built of people. We would go out into the villages around Loughborough and then further and further out up to Melton Mowbray. And then we had requests from Oakham. And Oakham is where we have our other studio. We found at that time there weren't many photographers. There were a few, but there was no actual studio in town. And we
Right.
went and had a look at the town. And since we were getting inquiries from there, we thought this is a nice place. Dad always had loved Oakham. Sushil had actually gone to school at Oakham. Sushil and Dipesh, his brother, they'd both been to school at Oakham as boarders in their teens. So it was a special place for Dad anyway. I hadn't known about the town until I first went there, but it is an absolutely beautiful little countryside town with no chain stores, very boutique shops. So it suited us and what we did and what we wanted to offer very well. And within the first few years, we were very busy. We got busier. We were at the end doing 8 sessions a day, and it was far too much for Dad. He'd had quite a few health flags
Right.
to say you need
So
to
how
slow
did that
down.
balance then? If you had two places, did you work in one and your dad? Did you split days? What did you do? How did that
No,
work?
we would both be at the same place at the same time at that time, because Oakham would be open certain hours, so normally 11 till 2, and then Loughborough would be after that, or we would have a day at Loughborough. Saturdays we would alternate, so we would have a full day at Oakham, or we would have a full day at Loughborough. And so we could balance it out and work it out. And if bookings came in at Oakham, then that would be where we would be that day. Past 2 o'clock, we may be there till 5 if there were bookings there. So that's how we tended to balance it out. Because Loughborough didn't have to be manned full days, we could actually just book the appointments and then be there by appointment.
So what's the travel time between the two?
45 minutes.
Yeah, see, that's not a lot. When
No,
you think, there's a lot of, I know my clients travel over an hour to my studio quite comfortably. So it seems very strange. I get why you do it because I know I know the village and I know how beautiful it is. So I know why you would want to be there. But did you never think about just moving to one and
well,
releasing the other?
we have now slowly, we have more of our business now at Oakham and only occasionally now at Loughborough. So we have sort of in the last couple of years, post-lockdown, we were still very busy because we had all the bookings from lockdown that fell into that post-lockdown period. But then since then, things have slowed down a bit. And I think we're getting to an age where we like to enjoy the session, know about the family, do a lot more research about why people want the photo shoot and deliver something that's a lot more personal and luxury to them. And so to do that and give more time to each booking, we've sort of reduce the number of sessions that we do in a day, but given more time to the ones we really do, given our full and whole to each of those sessions, and really enjoyed the people that we're working with.
So spending more time with a particular client is nice. I know. When did that transition start to happen? And was it a conscious thing, or what was the main reason for doing that? Because you said obviously a little bit before, doing those amount of sessions per day was a lot.
It was. I mean, I was coping with it at the time, and um, I am quite an active person. I try to keep fit, and you know, an 8 hour day with 1 hour shoots was fine, but Dad wasn't. It was too much for Dad. So midway, so about 15 years into the business, Sushil decided that his job was keeping him away from family and the children, and so he took a sabbatical leave from his project management job in London and decided to join me so that we could relieve Dad a little bit, and Dad could do things more in his own time. He loves to travel, so he would take the camera and travel and take photographs and do what he wants to do with his time. But Sushil came just at the pivotal point where everything moved to digital.
Right.
And when things moved to digital, I had a lot to learn because I'm not very good with computers. To learn the software was a lot for me to do overnight. And I haven't got that sort of, I didn't have the go-get for that. I love the photography and I love the people and I love the camera, but I didn't like this new system. And we were quite reluctant to move because initially digital photography wasn't up to standard. There were a few years where it was okay, but it was very poor compared to what you got on
It was
film.
rubbish. There's no two ways to
Absolutely.
get about it. It
Yes,
was rubbish.
absolutely rubbish. So Dad would just not, no, we're not doing that. We're not dropping our standards to move with the trend. And we managed quite a few years without moving to digital. But when we did, me and Dad were like, oh, we're not going to do this every day. We'll just try it for today. And overnight, it changed everything. Shishul took over the whole system because this was part of his job anyway. Training people to use computers and put systems in place was what he did for a living up until then. So for him to come in and into a tiny little business of ours and put everything into place, he was training 40, 50, 60 people on a project. He could easily do this. So he took over all of the system, all of the post-production, he took over. And it was such a relief for us that happened at that moment, and it was meant to be, because otherwise I would have really struggled with the computer work.
So when you transitioned, how did you transition? Did you go straight from film to total digital, or was
Yes,
it a film? So it was a total digital. What
total digital.
can you remember
Oh,
what camera you started with and what you
it was the
changed?
Olympus. Olympus begins with P. Olympus something.
So it was a total. So it was like a 35mm
Yeah.
body swap. Yeah.
Yes, it was. And it basically we did one day's shoot on it, and it just had so many more images that I could still take. I couldn't believe how many images I could take a session. And there was and I could try new things out. I was experimenting even on that first day. Let's do it this way. Let's do it that way. Whereas on film, you're so restricted because every photograph had to be positioned and posed. And this was like freedom. I'd been out on a leash. So that first day,
Did you take too
handing,
many? Did you
I
start
was
taking
still
far too
I
many?
mean, compared to a lot of photographers who start on digital, I was still very conservative with the number of images I took. I can't just take
Yeah,
hundreds of thousands. When you're trained
yeah.
that way, you can't just keep
No,
pressing buttons,
can't.
and you
It doesn't feel natural, does it?
no, no. And I wouldn't just waste shots for the sake of wasting them. But if I saw something good that might be good for a trial, there was quality images within the set that I had for each session. And Shishel just downloaded them and he said, "Yeah, do you want to go again tomorrow?" Okay, let's do that. So we went, yeah, straight into, and I never had the film camera back again. In fact, for years afterwards, Dad still hung on. He still hung on to his rolls of film in the fridge, and he wouldn't let them go. But I wasn't going to use them because,
You forget. The amount of having a little fridge. We in the studio, every studio had a fridge full of film. I think a lot of young people won't even understand that to keep film fresh and
yeah,
not you could go beyond its expiry date. Not that you did, because you used to use it, but it would stay fresh when it was kept in a fridge, wasn't
yes,
it?
it
Yeah,
would. And for time to come, even, Dad did get a roll of film out 10 years later and tried it out, and it still took
perfect
great
fact. Yeah,
photographs.
yeah.
Yeah,
And a lot of people won't understand that, will they? That certainly youngsters that don't know about how film worked. There
yeah,
was an expiry date on a roll of film, but if you kept it in a fridge, it just seemed to allow it to last for a lot longer.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, so every
And funnily
professional
enough,
studio had one, didn't they? They had a fridge full of film.
absolutely, we had a fridge full of film always. There was, 2 drawers allocated just for film, and, every studio had them. But saying that, our son, our youngest one, Ashish, has just, um, bought a film camera and he's working on film and he's absolutely loving it. But he says, "I don't want any tips. I don't want to know how it works and, what I should do better." He said, "I want to learn it all myself." We've left it to him.
Yeah, that's
It's
great.
hard not to say anything, but he's got to learn the way he wants to.
Yeah, yeah. So when you transitioned over, did did you go into doing learning software side of things, or did you leave that to home?
Did.
You
Yeah,
did.
no, I did. I actually did. The first basic Photoshop actions and learning, putting things in place and how to do things better, because um, we did have lots of people we used to meet and where we would get together and discuss how things could be done better, or have you seen this, or have you done that, have you tried this. So I would be there and I did have an interest, so I do know very basic, but it's so moved on now, so far and beyond what I know. But I could pull up an image and tidy it up a little bit, probably not in the best order, but I
Yeah.
could just brush up an image if I needed to. I couldn't do what Shashil does. Um, yeah, he's way, way beyond.
So you just love the taking, the photographs, the actual physicality of being involved with the camera.
Yeah, and do you know, as the years go by, I don't even feel like it's about taking the photographs. I think my love is actually meeting people and learning about them,
Right.
about their lives, about who they are, and trying to bring their real personality out onto somewhere where people can physically see it. Because every person is beautiful. Everybody has a bit of sparkle. It's just lighting it in the right way. And that's what I feel like I'm doing on every session. I feel like I'm just spending time with a person, having a cup of coffee sometimes, um, chatting to them about life, and
Life.
then finding out what they're about. And to be able to bring that onto a screen or paper, or a presentation on a wall, I think if I've done that, if I've done justice to that person, that's my job done. That's what I love doing. It's not always about the actual technical clicking of you know, a take. It's about the actual delving into that person finding that person and bringing that out on what I do.
So when you're talking about that, that sounds more like you're talking about older people when you can connect rather than a youngster or a child. What style, because you mentioned weddings before as well, what do you primarily do then these days? What, I know you've done a lot of all sorts, but what's your primary genre and area now?
It could be anyone, and in fact, it can be a child as well. A 3-year-old can be very shut down when he walks in the door. Um, but you discuss Lego or whatever they're into, Frozen, and suddenly this, oh, I like this color. I love this dress. I like building this. I like building that. A 7, 8-year-old is a different person completely. A baby at 4 months, 8 months, sometimes can be shy or sometimes very giving. But it can take a little while to bring that real person out, whether it's a child or a baby, a 3-year-old, a preschooler, a 17-year-old even. Teenagers can be quite shut down and stuck on their
Very much
phones.
so. Yes.
Yeah,
They
but
can be a
if you
challenge. Yeah.
can just get them out of that zone and just chat to them and talk to them, they've actually got a lot to say, um, you know, and very intelligent things to say as well. Far, far more forward than we were at 17-year-olds. They're thinking on lines that are way ahead. But I guess the media and social, the internet all gives them that. So
Yes.
um, I think there's so
So you
much in
still like to
every
do
person.
absolutely every genre there is?
Absolutely every genre, up to 60, 70, 80-year-olds that have come in and told me their life stories, which have been tremendous. The things that we do with that, very interesting. In fact, there's a restoration project that we're working on at the moment, mainly Shishil's side of things, but a whole book of history from the 1800s to the granddad now is being made. And so, there's so much in a person and a personality that you don't see on the surface if you're just walking past them on the street. Um, and this is their time to come in, bring their family or bring themselves, and we get to open them up like a book.
What would you say to people out there then that aren't doing it, aren't getting a photograph taken and going to places and going to studios and doing it? What do you think they're missing out on?
At the moment, for the last 20 years, everybody's been hooked on digital. Everybody's relying that their phone has everything they need for a photograph. And fine, they may find a way to take a good photograph on it, but to have it printed to be, I think prior to 20 years ago, there was a lot of portraits taken for the home, and people used to have them up on the wall. They would see them, and I feel that children used to get a lot of security from that. Families used to get security. A dad walking out the door, seeing his children or his family portrait before he walks out the door for work, gets a lot back from that. And I think that's what people are missing. If they haven't had portraits done, then sometimes there's no reason because they feel like they've stored everything on their phone. It's all there, but they're actually not getting the value of that
Yeah, yeah.
as a person. Psychologically, what we do
When
need is
did
to be loved.
when did that change then? When do you, because there was a period where everyone just had wall portraits. When did that change? Was it, because I don't know whether was it before digital? Was it, what?
I'd say it was 20 years ago, but the reason I say that is because I have a niece who's 20 now, and her older brother, 23, has got photographs of when he was a baby, and we've got massive portraits of that, but she hasn't got any. So I would say that's where the cutoff is, 23 and onwards.
It was the
Not 20,
problem of
no,
printing digital. It was,
2003 onwards.
I think there was a huge transition, wasn't there, with the digital era, where the quality was good enough to do 10 by 8s, you
Mm.
know, but to do big pictures on the wall, it was, and there was a lot of, and people were like, and it just stopped happening, didn't it? It went, and it just sort of died a bit of a death
Yeah,
of
and I think it was
on the
soon after
wall.
2000. Soon after 2000,
Yeah.
things changed because we did move to digital. Um,
Did you sell as many wall portraits then back then? What what did you end up selling?
but we did sell from what we had because at that time people still didn't have phones, and so they still needed that. Um, they couldn't take the photograph because they didn't have the digital cameras. What we took in studio on digital was not the same as what they had at home because we knew how to use a digital camera. The public was actually still trying to figure out, even if they bought a digital camera, how to use it. So they still needed a quality photograph would be from a photographer who had a studio or was working from home.
Did you ever
Um,
did you ever sell just digital photographs, just the digital without the
not until way later. I know a lot of photographers released digital files, but we didn't go with that trend. We we didn't because we wanted people to have something physical up on the wall. We wanted people to see portraits in print, whether they were in albums or books or as 10 by 8s, or even if there were a set of printed photographs in a box, it was better than not
yeah,
better than handing over or sending
100%
over
agree.
digital images,
Yeah.
because as soon as you send off digital images, first of all, you have no control over how that photograph's going to be printed. It may be, it depends where they go, but it's going to be the cheapest option that they choose to print it, and that's not going to be what your work is about. And if other people see that as your work, that's not your quality, is it? So
Uh, it's been a big mistake of the industry, wasn't it, to sell just
yeah,
digital
yeah.
images. And I'm guilty for it in my own right. I've done the same.
Mm.
You tend
We
to think,
have of
you know,
recent years. We have sold digital files, but we also always have a printed set with it, um, so the cost of the digital files um, would be that it would include a printed set so that they could see physically
how it's
what the
meant to be.
quality was supposed to be. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it doesn't ever come across. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter if you're looking at it on a monitor, is it? When you look at on a monitor, and you can have the best quality monitor in the world that you're
Mm,
looking at, color accuracy, and then you suddenly see it come back from a lab as a really big wall portrait. It's just different again, isn't it?
it is. It is. It's not. It's so much more alive when you see it as a portrait.
It's, yeah. So it's a shame that people don't understand that as much as we probably do, because we see it a bit more. But yeah, so if you were to turn somebody down in the studio, basically saying no, don't want to do it, you know, what would that be, and why would that be? Anything, could be anything in photography that you would go, no, not doing it. Why would that be, and what would it be?
At the moment, now,
Yeah,
or at any time.
anytime. If you suddenly go, no. When something just goes, this isn't right, why would it be? And what's giving you that insight to go, no, I'm not doing that?
Right. Well, at the moment, we're not doing full day weddings.
Right.
So
Okay.
full day weddings is an absolute no for us. We made the decision quite a few years ago to opt out of that because the number of images, first of all, Shishal was having to deal with, humongous compared to any portrait session or any 1 hour shoot that we would do. Uh, just didn't weigh up to the time he had to spend to go through those images. A lot of those images, even if he whittled it down to maybe 300 from, you know, the numbers that we'd taken, you've got 300 images there that out of which probably 60-70% could go in for an award. So how do you eliminate? And the couples were struggling. First of all, to make their choices, to, we'd be having 4 or 5 consultations. We'll whittle it down to this. We'll change it that. We'll do that. We'll do that. And then by the time we've had the fifth consultation, when one album took 10 years to come to fruition, we said, that's it. We're drawing the line here, because that order is in your book for 10 years. And, it was way too long. And it didn't weigh up money-wise as well. I mean, for what we got paid for that, we could have done 2 one-hour sessions in the studio and resulting in the same amount. It just didn't weigh up. So we decided, if we're going to do a wedding, which we have done short ones, up to 3 hours max, and that's it. And so that's the one place where I would say, no. I absolutely love doing them, of course, but I love the beginning to the end of the day, but you're drained.
Yeah. Do you miss it though? If it wasn't the financial and the amount of numbers and all the rest of it, the actual day of shooting and being around people?
Yeah, I'm happy behind the camera, whatever I'm doing. I wouldn't. Yeah, I think I love. Every wedding is different. Every couple was different. The different ways they've got decorations together, the dress, the build up to it, the emotions that go through a day. I loved all that because that's all about people.
Yeah.
I do love that. But yeah, it was heavy. They are heavy days. We would be there until people were falling over on the dance floor, and sometimes without food because you never have time to breathe.
Yes. Well, that's what Claire was several weeks ago. She was saying she had to plan all her toilet breaks and everything before what she was doing and what she would drink the night before, because she knows she just wouldn't have time, on a wedding, which is something people just probably think, whoa, I would never even think about something like that. But
but you do have to, because there aren't many toilet stops on a wedding day,
and you don't have that problem in a studio.
No, you don't. No.
So what would you say gives you the greatest joy? What genre, when you're doing anything? And I know it's very difficult to answer that because there's so many facets to every single one. But if there was just one particular genre and I said, you're only going to do that from now on, what would it be and why?
That is very difficult. There's so many ages I love. I can't pick on that. I absolutely love doing newborns because it's such a new part of a family's life. There are often tears. But then I love the preschoolers who just give you whatever they've got. There's no filter. They don't hold back, and they just say what's in their head. And I love that because they've got these huge big cheeks and their eyes, and they're sparkly, and they've got this massive thick lashes and such bold characters, some of them. And I love that. And I still love the under 10s as well. The teenagers almost looking like adults.
So so in your mind there, it's the younger generation.
It is the younger generation. I say that, but then I've also loved doing shoots for men and women. We do empowerment shoots where it brings them out, but it gives them more confidence, changes their lives often. And I love doing that as well, because to see a woman or a man come out of their shell and be the person they really are and feel good about it, that's a job fulfilled, isn't it? It's so rewarding.
So do you think
Yeah.
so when you think about it, as a photographer, do you think you're just a person that takes pictures, or is it a lot deeper than that these days?
Absolutely, a lot deeper than that. Yeah, it's not the person who takes the photos. I'm just somebody who who loves to spend time with people and get to know them. I think that's what it's more about. And I think sometimes people have lost themselves and have forgotten over time what they were like when they were young. And it's bringing that back.
Yeah.
If it's the older person I'm photographing, or if it's the younger one, to just capture who they are and bring that
Why
on
do you think
record.
people are losing themselves these days? What is it? Is it just what do you think?
Do you know, I think social media has a lot to answer for that, because there seem to be a lot of trends of, you know, this is in, that is in, this is in, that is in. I'm trying to be like that. I'm trying to be thin. I'm trying to have a 24-inch waist. I'm trying to be the cool guy. I'm trying to. What about the person that's actually in there that you've forgotten about?
Yeah.
So I think that's what that's why people are losing it, because there's too many things going on all the time around them. They haven't had time to look back inwards.
So you're obviously giving them that time
Hmm.
to do that. How much time are you giving them? What from say a start from the first time you meet somebody to their end product? How much time is involved in that? Have you ever thought about that and what you
Yeah,
calculate?
sometimes it can be 15 minutes, it can be an hour chatting to them prior to the session, prior to the shoot, maybe an hour and a half in the shoot, and then another hour discussing what they'd like from there. So that's about 2.5, 3.5 hours
Yeah, yeah,
in total.
yeah. And
Uh,
when would you say you get to see them? Is it because a lot of people these days talk about talking to them on the telephone prior and understanding the person that's coming in. Do you find that's easy, or do you find it's far easier to do it when you're in the studio with them?
Definitely when they're in the studio with us. Yeah, definitely. It's to speak to a person face to face is very different to being on a phone, as texting is to being on a phone.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think from doing it from years ago, the film way, do you think that's got any influence in the way you work in the studio still and how you handle people? Because obviously, when
Yes.
I was in this, yeah. So tell me what that was quite an instant yes. So tell me a bit about that. What do you think's that? Where's that yes coming from in your
Yes,
mind?
because when we started in photography, I do remember Dad spending time with the family or the person who has who was booking the session. Even during the session, as the session evolved, there was a lot of things discussed. We talked a lot before we pressed the button. It wasn't just a press of the button continuously, because then we were on film. And so things happen during a session that makes a person more relaxed or more giving or more open about who they are or what they're doing, or what they love about their baby. Or, I love the way um, he chuckles like this. I love it when he smiles with his eyes. I love it. I love the bright blue color in his eyes. Um, so that a mother, if we're doing a baby shoot at that time, would be saying things like this. And I know that Dad, from the beginning, would spend that time and capture that. Um, in
Because it took longer to set up because you didn't want to press the button and make a mistake. So you were able to talk more and communicate more
Yeah,
at that time, do you
yeah,
think? Is that it?
that as well. But also at that time, because we used to set up in their home. While we were setting up, we were always chatting. There was
Right.
time,
Yeah.
uh, to get to know that person or that family. They wouldn't all just disappear while we got set up.
Yeah.
They'd be sitting there, so we'd be talking about things and what we were going to do and how we were going to do it and what they wanted from that session. So we would have had time to discuss all those things, and that would allow them to open up a lot more when we actually press the button.
Yeah. So So realistically, it's that time, it's that quality time, isn't it, to understand the person a little
Yeah,
bit more than just
yeah,
going bang, 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 click, 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 click. Yeah,
that's it.
slowing down. So was there a was there a point of going from a slow down in a fast environment? Because obviously you wanted to do slowly because you get to know them, but you were doing a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that is that where the stress came from? Because it was a fight against each other.
Yes, there was. And I think some of the sessions we did were a lot in an hour. A lot of things were happening, especially when we moved to digital. Because you could do more, you did more.
Yeah.
Because you could do more, you did even more.
And
So, because you
looking back,
wanted
was
to,
that the right thing?
I don't know. And, you know, I guess we go through time the way we do, but at that time, it felt the right thing to do because we always felt like we had to do something better or different or more. And I see things that we were doing in that time. Photographers locally, there's a few photographers, and I noticed last week we were doing that 20 years ago and they've just come out with it. So, you know, things like that, we had to stay ahead of our time, ahead of the game, whatever we were doing. It had to be something that was different. We were offering something that nobody else was doing at the time, whatever it was we were offering. And we kept changing and creating new things and making new ways of putting those photographs together in different ways that people hadn't thought about. So it helped us keep ahead of the game. It meant that we had to shoot more to get that.
Now, do you think, looking back, does did that make a difference? Did it make a
It did
difference
it.
to
It did
you?
at the time. I wouldn't want to go back to doing that now. I do enjoy this slow pace of enjoying the cherry, as it were.
So it was a learning curve for
Yeah.
you. What do you think was the benefit of that learning curve then?
Well, it's not so much a learning curve. It was a pace of time as it was. I think we gave differently. We gave new things. You know, everybody wants something that's different and new. And that's what we were giving at the time, you know. So it didn't mean that it was a bad thing or I've learned or it was a mistake. It was just something different that we did. Um,
And
may-
yeah, I look back at that and because I know exactly what you're talking about. But
yeah,
when you think about it in a longevity thing of photography and doing portraiture, what's really changed in the last 100 years when you take a person's photograph? Really, what has changed?
it hasn't a lot, has it?
No. Yet we all think and we go through these periods, don't we? Of
Yeah,
got
I
to
think it's
try
more
this.
the presentation wise, it was different. Um, I think the actual photograph, you're still taking a photograph of a person. And it's always been about finding out what that person was, whether you take 100 photographs or 5.
Yeah, it's funny how our mindset thinks of way what we say. Oh, we've got to do something new, different, and reinvent. But nobody's really ever really reinventing anything, are they? Because
No, absolutely not. We're still taking a photograph at the end of the day.
uh, it's
Yeah.
it's a very conjunctual way of thinking, isn't it? That we all do. And it in its layouts and it's things like that, isn't it? And it's the
Yeah.
presentation of something, and it moves on, and I suppose hairstyles change and clothes change, and these things do, don't they? And you look,
Yeah. I
and
think
that's what dates things, but
that
you can,
context of hairstyles change and clothes change, we've always um, had white and denim as the clothing we suggest from the beginning, if it's a family portrait or um, if it's a portrait of a person, and if it's babies, we generally have the least amount of clothing that they need to have if they're going to dress them up, because those are the ones that are timeless. And so when we have somebody come into the studio who's 30 years old and says, my mum's still got all your portraits up on the wall, it's actually great for us to hear that they haven't had to cringe and,
Take them down.
put the shoulders away or put the perms
Yeah,
away or whatever it was. They still look just as good, and they're very simple.
that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think if when you think about it, because you are creating something that's timeless, that wants to last forever. So if you're thinking about the fact that can you create something that's going to still look good in 40 years' time on somebody's wall
yeah.
when that child is coming in with their children and things,
Yes, which they
that's a
have.
big thing, isn't it?
It
It's,
is.
and I probably think there's not a lot of us, me included, really consciously think about that concept. So what gave you the idea of just saying, right, let's use the minimalist jeans, and is it white t-shirts or shirts, or
Yeah,
was it
white t-shirt, just plain white tops, and jeans was always our sort of uh, guide on dressing up. If they wanted to, at that time we used to do a lot of high key. We don't tend to do high key. Well, probably not done high key for about probably the amount of time that it took to master the white background. And then we gave up on it.
what you see? You do a lot more low key now.
Yeah,
People
well,
don't
it's
understand the
not.
difference. Can you just explain to people, because there'll be people watching that go, what we're talking about with high key and low
So
key?
high key was when the background was completely bright white and there were no glaring lights into it. You couldn't see any sort of hot spots where the light had burnt into. And if you had a perfect white background, um, brightly lit, that was high key. What we tend now to do is either low key, where it's a darker background, or a mid sort of light where it's more grey. And it's quite flattering, I'd say. Although seeing the high key photographs, looking back through albums and things, um, they were flattering because Dad used to use really lovely softness to them. He used
Right.
to add softness, and so those were flattering, and that's why people still have them up on the wall. Because mums, 20 years on, I don't look like that. That's what they'd say, but actually they did, and they do, because we had no digital enhancement. It was on film. It was just taken so soft that the
So when
skin
you're
looked
doing low
amazing.
key then, so if you're doing low key now, what do you consciously talk about clothing still? Do you go down that
Yes.
route of, right?
Absolutely. We always discuss clothing. I think clothing can ruin a portrait, make or break it if it doesn't fit with your lighting. It's
So
not
what
something that somebody's going to want up or to see.
so what
So,
would you say breaks it? What would you say is a no-no in your
no,
mind?
no, is a busy
Studio.
pattern that's distracting, heavy checks that your eyes go straight to, spots, or, um, you know, things that are not. Um, when you photograph a person, you want to see that person. You want to see into the eyes and the soul of that person. You don't want any distraction. And the way that portrait is going to be distracted is by clothing, because that's the only other thing that's your lighting is, yeah, and your hair. Yeah, if you have some. You didn't have to worry about your hair 10 minutes before. You've ever spoken to a curly-haired girl? Oh my goodness, But yeah, hair. Um, well, hair, we tend not to say a lot for hair. We like people to have it how they naturally are, what they're comfortable in, because if they're comfortable in it now, they're going to be comfortable looking at it 30 years on. I think if you've gone out and done special hairstyles or had a spray tan done that makes you 4 shades darker than you normally are, which I do remember one session where that had happened, and this lady had been coming to us for years prior to that shoot, and suddenly she'd had a tan done that was definitely not a shade in line with what she was thinking. And it showed on the photographs, you know. So those are the ones that you're going to be tucking under the bed. So be true to yourself, be who you are, what you're comfortable in. But don't wear anything that's distracting unless it's something that's what your portrait session is about. You know, we've had male shoots where there's designer clothes that they particularly wanted to wear and made them feel good. And if that's what
Yeah.
it is, then that's different.
Yeah. So going back to your studio, and when did you take full control? What was when you were turning around and saying, "This is me. I've got it now. It's my baby."
I think that was about 18 years ago, if I say right. 18 to 20 years now.
And you
Because I
still have
know
the two studios.
we do, yes, we do.
So you've never decided to go down to the one. Would you decide to ever go down to the one, or is it just ingrained in you that you're so used to having the two?
It's
Or would
so
you go
much
to
easier
three?
when you've worked the really busy times. It's actually so laid back at the moment for me.
Right.
Um, so for me, it doesn't matter if we've got one or two. If they're both running, it's fine, and if it's convenient and it works, that's fine. But we try because we have most of our um, display and the different types of presentations we do are now more at Oakham, and so that's why
Do
most
you
of our
do
business.
different styles at different ones, or is it
No,
all
no, it's always
exactly?
been the same prices, the same. We have different types of clients at each studio, um,
So why is that?
just different areas. The people in Oakham are very different to the people in Loughborough. I
Yeah,
don't know
that's
why that is, but it's only 45 minutes away. But you probably find that in your area. People who live an hour away in one direction are different to people who live an hour away in the another
well, our
direction.
accent's different. That's for certain.
Accents are different. They probably call bread a different thing. But yeah, there is a difference in the clients that we have at each studio. But the presentations and the prices and everything we offer is the same at either. So, you know, we may get a family who has come to the Oakham studio for the shoot and then come to Loughborough to see them and discuss what they'd like from there. It would be the same at either studio, whichever place they came.
So if you were going to give yourself some advice, and you were starting out, and you were thinking, right, I've just finished university, and I'm wanting to start a business, and I'm going to do it in photography. What advice would you give yourself now that you wish you'd known then?
What advice would I give myself now? What advice would I give them?
Yeah, what would
I
you give you if you were starting out again and it was you, and you now know what you know from
Yeah.
photography, and you were
Okay.
thinking, right, what is the one thing I wish I'd known straight away?
I think for me, it's probably different to everybody else's story because I had dad, um, who knew a lot about photography, who actually had a lot of experience. So for me, I had first hand to learn from. I wasn't I wasn't stumbling over bricks like a lot of people who are setting out on their own might have been. I already had a foundation under me. So for me, that was a huge bonus. So if there's a sort of a mentor or somebody who they can connect with, who can help them on their way,
Yeah.
I think that
So
was
really
that was
going to
huge
work
for
for
me.
somebody, go and work for somebody then. Go and
Yeah,
work for somebody else and learn.
and
Yeah.
learn. Yeah, because photography is not just about if you're using this as a career, it's not just about the photography, it's about the business and running a business. And what that throws at you is quite different to just having a passion for photography. There's a lot on the business side that you may figure out, you know, spend 3 years figuring out how you're going to do your marketing and what works and what doesn't work. But by 3 years' time, everything will have changed and you're on a different platform and you're having to do things differently again. So you're learning all the time. It's not about, okay, I know how all the skills that I need to know about photography. I know all about the software. I've learnt everything. I'm now on my way. I don't have to do anything else. It's not like that at all.
No, it's not, is it?
As soon as you've learnt everything, the floor has moved and you have to learn again. And you have to keep learning. And I guess that's in any business field. You can't be complacent and feel like you know everything, because you never do.
Do you enjoy that side of it? Do you enjoy the fact that there is change, or would you just prefer it if it didn't?
At this point in life, I think I'd prefer if I didn't have to learn anymore. I'd be happy with, yes, it's not going to change anymore.
And
The
how
years
many?
building up to it, I've absolutely enjoyed everything. I've enjoyed learning. I've enjoyed being creative in different ways. I've learned having to
What would you
produce
say then,
different
from
things.
being creative and doing this? What would you say has been your greatest take home for you, where you feel that that was it? I've done it there. Or has there been a particular moment that stands out in your mind more than any other in what you've done?
I think enjoying what I've done all the way along. I've never had a time when I've not enjoyed it as such. I've always gone out with a positive. There have been, occasions in every business. There are ups and downs, and there
Yeah.
have been a few points that you think, it could have been different. But on the whole, I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the journey all the way, and I'm still enjoying it. And we still work together, Shishil and I, and as a couple.
That's must be really nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. I think we've had a lot of time together. Okay, there are times when you think, and the other thing, I think for us, we do have different departments, as it were. So there's things that I do and there's things that Shishil does, and I can't do what he does, and he can't do what I do. So we fill in each other's gaps, as it were, which is why it's worked as a business all these years. But I think as a couple, sometimes it does feel a bit, I need some time away.
So moving forward,
Yeah,
So moving
yeah.
forward now, you've got 2 studios. It's been a family business.
Mm.
Where's that gonna go? Have you thought about what's gonna happen in the future? Have you thought about 10 years, 15 years, 20
Yeah,
years?
I don't think we'll be doing this in 10 years' time. I think we would love to now have some time for ourselves where we can travel, Shishal and I.
Right.
We'd like to probably do a few things differently, um, in terms of what we'd like to do with our spare time. I won't say what age he is, but the years are getting tighter in terms of how active we're going to be for how many years. So you've got to count your time really and use it wisely. And I think we're sort of weighing that up. So we're getting to a stage where, thinking more about the future, what time we'd like to spend with the business and what time we'd like to do other things with. And both of us do have a wish to travel. So we'll see how many years we're still here.
Yeah. It's a funny one, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
you enjoy what you do, and I can see that you enjoy what you do, and
yeah,
then you've got to think about everything else that goes on, and what to do
yeah,
with studios and all the rest of it. But
yeah,
yeah, it's a it's a one to find out in the future, isn't it? Really.
absolutely. Keep
Yeah.
watching.
That's it. Well, thank you very, very much for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, absolute pleasure, Andrew. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I can see you've got a real passion and joy and love for the communication of photography, because that's what it is. We're communicators, aren't we? It's a creative
Absolutely, yeah.
communication. So,
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for joining me. If you've enjoyed today's episode, if you could just do me one favour, and that would be to like and subscribe, and I'll do my best to make sure Behind the Lens finds the best professional photographers from all over the world so we can enjoy their life stories. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.